You're on Meet the Press with the opposition's climate spokesman Greg Hunt, and welcome to the panel Lauren Wilson from the Australian and political commentator Glenn Milne. Good morning, Lauren and Glenn. Last month, your colleague Malcolm Turnbull accurately described, he said, your direct action policy. Here he is.
A direct action policy where the government, where industry was able to freely pollute, if you like, and the government was just spending more and more taxpayers' money to offset it, that would become a very expensive charge on the budget in the years ahead.
True Energy says you can't move from brown coal to gas without a 20% hike in electricity prices. Given your direct action policy isn't revenue generating, isn't Mr Turnbull correct that this will become a very expensive way to cut emissions?
Well, we've actually set out very clear costings of $300 million in our first year, $500 million in our second year, $750 million in our third year. Our costs are capped, and this compares with a government which is about to drive up electricity prices, drive up petrol prices. Just this week we saw a new petrol tax mooted as part of the Garnaut report, and today I would call on the Prime Minister to rule out a new petrol tax. So our costs are capped. The government is going to try and drive up electricity and petrol prices as the means of forcing ordinary Australians to bear the cost of its carbon tax.
Hunt, when you say it's capped, I mean, obviously if you're going to continue to reduce emissions, the scheme can't remain capped. I mean, it is going to accelerate. It is an escalator, isn't it, in terms of... And where's the money going to come from? From hospitals, schools?
No, we've set out a very clear set of costs. It's approximately the same size as the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, which I believe the vast majority of people in Australia support, and it's paid for through savings. We've set out $50 billion of savings over the first 4 years of a coalition government. Of that, it would involve $3.2 billion of the $50 billion in savings. So we've made the savings to keep taxes low. The government, the ALP, will drive up electricity, drive up petrol, drive up gas and drive up groceries, and contrary to what they say, it's not the government or business that pays, it will be mums and dads, pensioners and seniors, small businesses and farmers, and that is precisely what was said by Professor Garnaut this week.
Well, your colleague Barnaby Joyce is a real sceptic. He clearly doesn't believe Australia can or should do anything about global warming. Here's a taste of his views.
They invent the idea of a carbon tax to support a proposition or to cure something they can't affect, which is the temperature of the globe, and they make you pay.
Barnaby Joyce says both direct action and a carbon tax are meaningless gestures. Is he right, or can Australia actually do something to affect climate change?
I think what Barnaby said is precisely in line with what the Climate Commission said, and that is acting alone, Australia will have minimal impact.
So it is a gesture? So it is a gesture?
China...
So it is a gesture?
It's only if China and India and Indonesia, Russia, the United States and Canada all play their part. And what is very interesting is that the United States, Canada, Japan, China, India, Indonesia have all rejected the carbon tax approach, and that's what punches a hole in the government's idea, because it will simply send jobs and emissions offshore. And what we're seeing now increasingly in Australia is a fight between the Labor Party as the party of elites and the Liberal Party as the party of the mainstream that says we don't want to send jobs offshore and we don't want massively higher electricity prices. We think there must be a better way, and there is.
Well, you've got a review of your policy schedule for 2015. Are you able, that's your carbon policy, are you able,
that's correct,
at this point to rule out not introducing a carbon tax as a result of that 2015 review?
We said, and we will, review international circumstances in 2015. My judgment at this point in time is that the United States, Canada, Japan, China, India, Indonesia are all moving further away from a carbon tax. I think it is almost improbable that the United States will head there at any time in the next decade. I think it takes that prospect further and further away. And the test for the Prime Minister is this: if the United States and Canada are not about to adopt a carbon tax, why is she, and will she use that as a test for whether to jump to an emissions trading scheme which will lead to a doubling of electricity prices by 2020 or soon thereafter.
Well, Mr Hunt, we have a Facebook and Twitter question from Cameron Foster. What percentage of the Liberal Party personally believe that anthropogenic or human-induced climate change is an issue that is pressing and worthy of a big policy change?
Well, I can't speak for individual numbers, but I can say that our policy is absolutely clear, that we support the science and we support...
3 years ago, Nick Minchin thought over half of your colleagues didn't believe it.
We support the science and we support the targets. We just disagree on the idea of an electricity petrol tax as the means of achieving it. Let me say this, that there are about 11 million Australians who believe in climate change with a human cause, and I am one of them. And there are about 4.5 to 5 million Australians who disbelieve. All parties have representatives and members with differing views, and they have a right to those views, but our policy is clear. The difference with the government is about a means, and it's about an electricity and petrol tax. It's not about how we take action, not about whether we take action, but how we take action.
Thank you very much for being with us on World Environment, I can't even say it, World Environment Day. Thanks very much, Greg Hunt. Well, coming up.